Okay, we'll turn that down a little bit so we don't get copyright strike on YouTube. Today I want to talk a little bit about my little adventure trying to play Jeopardy in PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
That's right, PowerPoint. I know, everyone hates PowerPoint. Dwight Schrute on The Office was right.
PowerPoint is boring.
But I was playing with PowerPoint. I was learning some of the neat new features that not a lot of people know about to make PowerPoint a valuable presentation tool to really get a point across. And this idea just kind of hit me. Is it possible to make a Jeopardy game in PowerPoint fully playable with all the real quick action that happens on the TV show? And after a few weeks of playing around, I'm proud to say, yes, I've got it. I've got a Jeopardy game. It's got a lot of cool features, easy to load with your own questions or even load with historical questions. I'll get into all the details later on, but first I'm going to step you through the gameplay here. Here we are. You saw the opening screen, which was this one. Behind the scenes, I just started a little file to load in the question. So now this game is ready to go. I'm going to just put in the people's names. Let's say it's Eris, my pet bird, and let's say it's Sam, my pet dog, and let's say it's Whiskey, my pet cat. So this is where we get the names. One thing you can do in my game, which you cannot do in the TV show, which I thought was just kind of a fun little thing, is you could enter a handicap right here in the opening screen. So let's say Sam, he's not so smart. I'm going to give him a $500 head start. So he's got $500 ahead. And maybe Whiskey's really smart. I'm going to make him $250 in the hole to start. So I can do that. Again, you can't do that in a regular game, but you can here. The other thing is this could come in handy if you ever have to do a change of score later in the game. So having said that, I'm just going to click on go to game grid. You can see at the bottom of the screen. Now you can't see me clicking because you're looking at the output, the audience version of the PowerPoint. I'll show you behind the scenes a little bit later on in this video. For now, I click on game grid and you can see the normal game grid with the addition of the 3 player names and scores at the bottom. Obviously, this isn't a TV show that I can keep cutting away to the players. So I've got to show that all on one screen. And just like the TV show, we can load the board with sound effects and then see how the contestants are going to do with the following categories: May, my fantasy football team, politicking, Terre Haute cuisine, the method, and finally, the Jimmy. So, of course, Eris has control of the board, and that is signified because her name now is in green. So if Eris was to choose May for 200, I'm going to select that, and we jump right to May for 200. At this point, the idea is you'd be playing with your family in your living room, or you could be playing with a few friends over Zoom. How they'd ring in, there's actually a website called buzzin.live, which you could use to have people remotely buzz in. Let's just assume that we've got the buzzing figured out. So let's say Eris buzzes in. I can then start the countdown timer with the lights, just a simple click, and Eris has 5 seconds to answer if she did indeed buzz in. And let's say she didn't get it right. I'm going to subtract $200 from her, and let's say then Whiskey buzzes in, so the countdown clock is going, and he correctly says the answer to this clue is the Titanic sinking, obviously. So we credit him the 200. And now Whiskey has control of the board. That's in green. So we go back to the game grid, and now Whiskey can select where we're going to go with the game. So Whiskey could select, well, let's stay with May for 400. So we get a clue, May 13, 1787, 11 ships leave England on a voyage that ends by establishing a penal colony here. Hey, Sam rings in. Sam, do you have an answer? And Sam says, I know, that's Australia, and Sam is right. He gets the 400, bringing him to 9. We go back to the game grid. Sam has control of the board. Sam says, let's stick with May. Click on 600. May 31st, 1913, 17th Amendment is ratified, authorizing the direct election of these. And let's say nobody rings on this one. Okay, just like the game, I can have a time is up beep. There it is. So we go back to the game grid. Sam retains control of the board. Sam wants to go to, let's say, May for 800. Oh boy. Sam hit the daily double. So yes, this game has daily doubles, 1 daily double in the Jeopardy round, 2 in the double Jeopardy round. These are random, but with a bias that corresponds to the historical heat map that Jeopardy is known to have. Sam obviously had control of the board. I've also added here the original clue value and a maximum wager amount. If you play the Jeopardy game or watch it on TV, you know how the wagering works. But if you don't, this all figures it out for you. Now, you notice a 15-second countdown clock happening here. That's because in the TV game Jeopardy, players have 15 seconds to advise the game master, Ken Jennings, what their bet is going to be. And if they don't do it in that time, they are defaulted to simply the the original clue value. So that's why I put that up on the screen here too. Now Sam is going to tell me what he wants to wager. He has $900 because it's a daily double. He can wager up to $1,000. So I can enter his wager just by clicking on his name in my behind the scenes here. And I am asked, let's just say it's going to be $1,000. So 1,000 is entered. We go to the clue. And Sam has a very difficult May 10th, 1941. He parachutes into Scotland with a peace plan. Sam, was that Rudolf Hess? Sam doesn't know. Sam loses the bet. Now, you see on the scoring grid underneath their names, only Sam has a plus or minus value. The other two aren't playing for this particular clue because it was Sam's daily double to win or lose. So let's say Sam loses it. Loses $1,000, brings them to minus 100, and we go back to the game. Let's finish off the category. May 4000, May 15th, 1756. This European war begins when England declares war on France, and Whiskey rings in and knows that that is the 7 Years' War. So we give him the credit, and he's in control of the board. Now, I'm not going to continue playing the game. You get the idea. At the end of the Jeopardy round, I would then advance to the double Jeopardy round, and we will do that. And as you can see now, Eris has control of the board because, like in real Jeopardy, when you start the double Jeopardy round, the player with the lowest score starts off with control of the board. So I know the TV show doesn't do this, but I love doing the random load so much I did it again here too. And we can reveal our categories. Let's learn Scottish Gaelic, Microsoft, Music Appreciation, My Fantasy Writer Team, That Island is Ours, and finally, Thespian O in quotation marks. So Eris makes her selection. So let's say just for kicks, Eris chooses let's say Music Appreciation for 2000. And Eris gets the daily double. The clue value was 2000. The max wager is 2000, even though she's got nothing in the bank. So let's say Eris chooses to do the maximum bet of 2000. We jump to the clue. He wrote 4 Mephisto waltzes, but the last was unfinished when he died in 1886. And Eris is a smart little bird. She knows that was Liszt. She's up to 1800, and we continue with the game. Eris can make her selection. Let's go Microsoft for 1200. In March 2004, this body hit Microsoft with a 497 million euro fine for its business practices. Take it out of petty cash. That was, of course, the EU. And let's say Sam rings in. He got that. He's at 1100. He has control of the board. So as you can see, this plays exactly like the real game. I'm going to time this out and force us to now go to the final Jeopardy round. And in Final Jeopardy, just like the game, before we wager, we first get to see what the category is. Category is words from mythology. And with only that category in place, the 3 players would enter their wagers. Now, the game master is actually going to enter their wagers. So if you were playing at home with your friends around the coffee table, I would say each person just maybe writes on a slip of paper what their wager is and hands it to the game master for entry into the game. If you're playing online, they could DM, direct message you with their wager. That would work too. So I'm going to do that. In fact, to do that, I'm just going to quickly switch to my behind the scene view here. So you can see the game master view in the middle of the screen, and on the top of your screen, you're seeing the clean view that the players see. You can see my mouse. They can't. And all I have to do is click on each name in turn to enter their wager. And the maximum wager is by default entered, but you don't have to keep that. So let's say Eris is going to wager just 1,000. I enter 1,000. Sam is going to wager not quite all 1,100, maybe 10.99, wants to be left with $1 if he gets it wrong. And Whiskey is going to wager all $950. So with the wager amounts all locked in, I will now go to the final Jeopardy clue. It refers to a mythical bird that calmed waves, or to past happy days. Spelled differently, it's a sleeping pill. Good luck, and we can start our 30-second timer. Usually it doesn't cause a bird to launch. And I'm going to turn that down because we don't want a copyright strike from YouTube. And at this point, as you can see, the answer is not presented in my screen for security reasons. I don't want anyone peeking over my shoulder at this point. If you're playing at home, your players would write their answers on a small piece of paper and hand it to the game master. Or if, again, you were playing with your friends on Zoom, they could just direct message you their answer. So there's time, and when the time is up, we automatically advance to the next screen. So we'll see what their answers were and then what their wagers were in scoring bottom-up order. So first up is Whiskey, and we look at Whiskey's answer, either that he handed to me on a piece of paper or DM'd me, and if he got it right or wrong, we would then say, let's see what your wager was. Your wager was $950, and let's say Whiskey got it right. He's now at 1900. Then we'd go to Sam. Sam, did you get it correct? No, Sam got it wrong. What did you wager? Oh, Sam wagered $10.99, leaving him with just $1. And finally, Eris. Let's say Eris got it right. She got the answer Halcyon. And let's see her wager. Her wager was $1,000, bringing her to $2,800. And that means Eris is the winner. So that's the gameplay. Now let me take you a little bit behind the scenes and just show you some of how it works. So here's the presentation screen. As you can see, I've got everything categorized. You know, there'll be all my clues, Jeopardy category 1, Jeopardy category 2. It is easy to navigate here, but you never have to. That's the point of this game, is it all happens automatically by clicking on the game grid. So if we go to the game grid, we can see it's exactly where we left it. If I was to save this right now, which I could do, the game would be preserved as it is now with the scores as they are and the names intact. Typically, though, I'd want to reset this at the end of the game. So I'm going to reset this just so you can sort of see the whole process. So at the very end, I've got some troubleshooting and reset things. So I can click here to reset player names to default. And again, you would normally only do this at the end of the game, which is where we're at now. So reset players' names to default, player 1, 2, and 3, done. Reset player scores to 0, done. And finally, let's reset all of the clues and responses, or questions and answers if you want to use the incorrect terminology. So we can do that. That's done through loading data in an Excel file, which I'm calling a sidecar file. I'll get to that in a minute because that's a real important key feature that makes this game really easy to work with. So I'm just going to say yes. And after just a second, it's using the same file that I used to load the game that we just played. Gives me a confirmation that it's all done. And now if we go back and look at the various game files, we can see they're all kind of generic. Clue 200, and the response over on the right over here is response 200, clue 400, response 400. So this is totally generic. Now you could go through and edit this manually, one slide at a time, putting your clues in the slide and your answers over here. But you don't have to, because as I mentioned, I've got this Excel sidecar file that's a heck of a lot easier to work with for building your game if you're building it manually, one clue and response and clue value at a time. But it also has the ability to import archival games so you can play archival games. So let me show you that real quick. I'm going to get out of this and open up Excel. So you can see in this Excel file now we've got a number of tabs. There's a README, which has a bunch of helpful information if you're new to this. I mentioned before the daily doubles occurring on a heat map that's consistent with the history of the Jeopardy game. I've archived this here. You don't need it. It's all programmed in the PowerPoint now. This was just sort of for reference going forward. The important parts of this file are the 3 tabs: Jeopardy, Double Jeopardy, and Final Jeopardy. And you can see they're just very easily grouped. Working with this would be, you know, a heck of a lot easier to type a clue and a response and a point value in here and repeat on the next line and so on. A lot easier and faster than doing it a clue at a time in PowerPoint. At least I think so. So the idea is you build your game here, and then at the start of the game, I'll show you that in a second, you just specify this Excel file is the one you want to use, grabs the data from these 3 tabs: Jeopardy, Double Jeopardy, and Final Jeopardy, and it jams it into all the slides.
That's what she said. Michael.
And in about half a second, you've got your game loaded, ready to go. You'll also notice it does have the clue values explicitly here. That's for 2 reasons, really. One, if you're playing a historical game, I'll get to that in a second, games prior to, I think it was November, December 2001, the point values were half of what they are today. So it wouldn't start at 200, 400, 600. It would start at 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. So historical games, you'd probably want to play with historical values, but you don't have to. So now let's talk about that. How does that historical work? So in this Excel file, there is a tab called Archive. And this archive file has every game from the first game on September 10th, 1994, all the way up to game 6300 on January 2012. If you want to play one of those games, all you have to do is go to the README, and there's a giant click here button. You click here, and here you see a dialog box that says enter the game number, or air date, month, day, year format, or type random for a random game. And as you can see, random has sort of been pre-selected, so I don't even have to type. I'm just going to hit OK. And it tells me it selected game number 4585 from July 9th, 2004. What did that do? In a blink of an eye, it's loaded that game that I just mentioned. It's loaded that game now into the Jeopardy, Double Jeopardy, and Final Jeopardy tabs on this spreadsheet. So if I save this, and I'm just going to do a save as just because now that I've got my Jeopardy, Double Jeopardy, and Final Jeopardy categories saved, that's all that matters. If I wanted to, because this file is pretty big because it's got that giant archive tab, I could save this copy and then in this copy delete the archive tab just to make it a lot more compact. I don't have to, but you could do that. Now you'll notice before we go forward, there's one small problem with playing an archival game. Actually, two small problems. You'll notice in this first Jeopardy category, box it up, that line is empty. 2, 4, 6, 800. It's missing the $1,000 clue. Why is that? That's because the archival information doesn't have that particular clue because the game ran out of time and that clue was never revealed, so we don't have that one. So if you're playing at home, you can decide if you want to just play it like that and say, fine, that clue's not available, we'll ignore it. Or you might want to be clever and come up with some sort of filler clue and response and value to fill that in. I'm just going to leave it for now so you can see what it looks like when we play the game, when we select this file. The other problem that you could run into, we're going to see down here on the Queen's English. Look at the clue values again, 200, 400, 600, 800, and $3,800. That should be 1,000. What happened? That's because that clue and response were the daily double on that game. And the historical data is recording how much was bet on the clue, not what the natural value of the clue was. So at this point, you could decide what you want to do if you want to sort of correct that and eyeball it and say, well, that's clearly supposed to be 1,000. So I'm going to make it 1,000. And then it will be fine. So now we'll save this and we'll close it. Very important that that's closed. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint game and we will go into presentation mode. And I'm going to go back to the mix view so you can see both the clean view and the behind the scenes view. And when I start the game, all I have to do is click anywhere on the screen and I am then prompted for that Excel file, that sidecar file. So I am just going to open that up right now. And as soon as that's loaded, the music starts. And we're taken to this screen. Now you've seen this before. All I have to do is click on a player name, enter their name, and it's entered. Now to get the random reveal of values, all you have to do is, as the game master, is click on the word Jeopardy on either the left or right column. By the way, all of this clicking I'm doing behind the scenes, you could do on the presentation views, but you don't, but it's kind of distracting. So I'm just going to click behind the scenes here. So I click on the word Jeopardy on the left or right. That gives us the random game load. And then to reveal the categories, you just click on the category box at the top of the screen, revealing them in turn. Now, you'll notice, remember that box it up that was missing the $1,000 clue? As you can see, it's got no value. At the end of the round, most of the jumping around you're doing is all done by clicking on targets on the game grid. The only time you actually click the slide advance or hit the right arrow button on your keyboard is at the end of a round. So at the end of the Jeopardy round, you could either, again, click the right arrow key or click the arrow on the on-screen presentation, which is right now cut off. You can't see it. Click the right arrow button, and that takes us to here. So a lot of this click here to continue is actually very important because it's going to initialize the next part of the game, get it ready for Double Jeopardy, establish a couple of variables, change some things. Most of the time, you're clicking on a target on the screen to advance the game. Here we are in Double Jeopardy, again, revealing the clues randomly, which I know they don't do on the TV, but I really love this. We click it to reveal it with the sound effect and reveal the categories one at a time. Double Jeopardies are chosen at random at the beginning or initialization of the game. One other important thing, not a problem, but important thing you have to understand is they are chosen randomly here, and it doesn't try to figure out, based on an archival game, what the Double Jeopardy category was, or Double Jeopardy clue was. It just doesn't do that. So, and if you want to know what the Double Jeopardy is going to be ahead of time, normally as the presenter, I would not know this. However, if you are running the Visual Basic IDE in the background, which I happen to be doing right now, there is a little printout in the corner that tells you what the Jeopardy daily doubles and Double Jeopardy daily doubles are going to be, what category and level they're going to be. If you wanted, you could sort of anticipate it, but you really shouldn't. The game master shouldn't know what they are ahead of time, just like the players certainly should not know what they are ahead of time. I guess that just revealed how I did all this. This was all done in Visual Basic for Applications, or VBA, in PowerPoint. If you're out there wondering, hey, how can I get a copy of this? You can't. This was for me. Jeopardy is a trademark of probably Sony Pictures Television or something. This was entirely a personal project for playing at home, but does hopefully give you an idea of what you can do with PowerPoint to build something really cool.